Hi, everybody. I'm CEO of Ikkuma Life. It's a bit ironic that I'm at Health TO. I used to be a vice president for an alcohol company for 6 years, so not that that could be healthy at times. I call it mindful health. So I just want to start off with the fact that we're in a room full of tech entrepreneurs. And I want to talk about the underlying kind of pathology or the underlying situation that's happening right now, and it's our distracted lives. So there's a lot of research out there. Matt Killingsworth talks about mind wandering. We mind wander half the time. And when we mind wander, we're net unhappier. So we're always more happy when we're present. And in this overly distracted world, it's becoming harder and harder. I have the little monkey in the corner. They often call it the monkey mind. We have a hard time being present. And this is an underlying pathology. This is Vivek Murthy. He was the Surgeon General. And he had all these people come in for different ailments, diabetes, HIV. But the one thing that he mentioned was everybody who came in was lonely. They just wanted to talk. So when we talk about distractions, when we talk about mind wandering, really what happens is those connections that we're sacrificing by being distracted, by being on our tech all the time, that's creating this underlying issue where we're not getting that feedback that we've evolved to get. You know, when you look at evolutionary biology, we have an imperative to really talk to each other. They've actually mapped out the brain. And when we have these interpersonal connections, that's when we're truly living life. So we're getting a highly disengaged workforce. Now, that was supposed to flip through, but I only have 7 minutes, and this presentation was an hour, I think, initially. So there's a lot of information out there about how do we become more present, and a lot of them have fancy swears in their title, but really there's a lot of information. I think the work has been done for us that there's an issue. But what does it really even mean? You know, what is mindfulness? And Eckhart Tolle, he says it nicely here, but really it's about being present. But it's not about being present in an echo chamber. It's about being present amongst all these distractions, still having peripheral awareness. So this slide alone was 20 minutes. So I'll tell a quick little story. You're a baby, you roll around, you struggle, you bump your head, you become more aware, and then you get around 7, 8 years old and you start to develop an ego, right? And now you have all this noise in your life. And you don't really see life for what it is, the intrinsic value in life. Everything starts to become more materialistic, more extrinsic. So what we want to do is we want to create more intention in our lives. And we want to create these nudges to really nudge us in the smallest measurable action to get us more to a place where we're present. And what happens in the end is we increase our awareness, but more importantly, we see the noise for what it is. And these nudges get us to that place where we can start reducing the noise, and that's where the power comes in. And that's truly a growth mindset. So it's all about nudges. So how do we create these nudges in people's lives? I'm going to talk quickly on 2 aspects of it. One is gamification as a learning tool. So there's a lot of engineers in here potentially, or chemists. I know there's a few in the back. So you guys know activation energy, getting from one energy state to another, right? You know, you need a certain amount of energy, you need a catalyst to catalyze the reaction. Well, really what we want to do is we want to create those nudges, which is a small delta in the energy state, and we want to motivate people using gamification. And I know it's a bit of a bastardized term right now, but really all it is finding this psychological imperative that we all react to. It's getting us in flow. It's that perfect balance of challenge and skill that gets us using things. Now, I would argue that a lot of companies use this to incentivize people to use their platform. Now, I would also argue that a lot of these platforms are a waste of time, and not only are they a waste of time, they're actually a net negative to our psychological welfare. You know, you look at Facebook right now. I'm not going to talk about specific tech platforms, but they're in the news a lot these days, because in the end, is it really making us happier? And the second is the newsfeed as a connection tool. What we want to do is we want to use those opportunities to leverage tech to actually add more intrinsic meaning in people's lives. We want to use the tech to actually create more interpersonal connections. That's what it's all about. And I think where we're losing is we're so focused on the bottom line, we're so focused on getting new users that we're forgetting that the underlying app, the underlying behavior isn't serving us long term. And you're seeing this with increases in suicide, especially with young people, and depression skyrocketing. So I think I'm good for time, Maggie. So I'd just like to leave you guys very quickly with this. There was a study recently done by Dr. Waldinger, and he studied people over 75 years. I'm sure a bunch of you guys have seen this study, and I think it was over 3,000 people. And they analyzed what the most important factor was for long-term happiness and longevity, and it was relationships. It was the quality of our relationships. And you might think so, but you're not going to get a quality relationship on a personal, what do they call them, PDAs? Is it a PDA? I think I'm dating myself. But anyway, your smartphone. You're not going to get quality connections with your smartphone. It's all about spending quality time together. And that's what we should be focused on. When we talk about mental health, how do we use a tech platform to get people more connected and get those enriching one-on-ones? Thank you very much. Thanks, Maggie. You can contact me. You can email me if you want. I left some of my first book in the back. There's 26 of them. You can just grab them if you want afterwards. Find Your Superhuman was the second one. That's our tagline. It's all about finding your unique gift. And if you want to email me, just send me a quick email at gary@ikkuma.com. Thank you. Yeah, so it's an app. So it's an app and desktop platform. The name is everything for me. The name means fire in Inuit. So Inuit is a native Canadian culture. Inuktitut is the language. And really fire in an informal perspective means to urge to take action. And it means a lot to us for a multitude of reasons, but it's that spiritual reverence that they have with the environment that's important to us. Before Google was invented, I'm sure Google was a tough word too. And the second one was, and the first question was, do we have an app? Yeah, so we're a desktop platform. We have an app. It's a B2B app. We're looking at a B2C offering right now, along with another partner, so that'll be evolving. But yes, we're ready beyond a minimum viable product, as they would say. Yeah, that's a great question. There's a ton of noise. Actually, that was the first slide. So the B2B model makes it more difficult and a bit easier, right? So it makes it more difficult to sell to that HR professional. Again, I was in operations for 17 years. I was the one making those decisions on the other side. So not only is there an issue with noise, but you're dealing with budget. This is an up-and-coming field. A lot of people talk about mental health, but they don't really have a budget to invest in it really yet. So for us, really the focus, when we talked about engagement, that is the singular focus. So the gaming elements, that's fairly pedestrian. A lot of people know how gaming psychology works. So for us, it's a matter of we're curating content on the newsfeed, and then it's user-created content. So if you look at Facebook, they had no curated content. It was all user-created. Now that was new, it was a shiny new object, and people got addicted to that comparing. But for us to get there, we have to curate amazing content. So we have tips, we have quizzes, we have blogs. So we feed that early, and honestly, if a company is invested in it, they're also doing that work to get people initially engaged. And then we have challenges, and we run those challenges with incentivization. So really, it's about how do you get the most people on initially, really reel them in with the curated content, try to get people to create user-created content, and then through challenges, recruit more and more people each time. That might have been a long answer. Actually, I should have paid people to ask questions so I wouldn't have to show everything in a presentation, because that's an excellent question. Now, when we talk about these nudges, right? So I talked about the fact that digital connections aren't really cutting it. So what we have is we have these daily quests called power-ups. And every day, our idea of a smallest measurable action is this 24-hour quest. And all the quests are meant to be predominantly interpersonal. So that's how we do it. So we incentivize people through points. So one example could be write a note of gratitude for a colleague. Something as simple as that. It gets you interacting with people. So really, when we start the platform, we have it all weighted. So there's an algorithm that weights the interpersonal quests, and we have over 600, that weights the interpersonal quests early. So we want to get people interacting with each other. So awesome question there. And when we talk about really sharing the kind of like open source, I guess, how do we spread this? Really, in the end, this wasn't a money-making proposition from a personal motivation. It was really about affecting a big change. And one of the ways we get companies kind of overlapping and sharing that is we actually create intercompany competitions, which is super cool. We did it in Liberty, and it's super cool. But again, you always need a shiny new object. So it's constantly curating that experience to make it more rewarding. We also have habits. So we have virtual coaching. And the virtual coaching has more foundational habits that you would do more over time. But in the end, a lot of our health is really about mental health. It all ends here, right? So we have sleep, nutrition, we have stress. We have 8 dimensions of health within the platform. So there's a lot of variety for everybody.